Hey guys, it's Van Dazzle by Card for Vanguard deck profiles. If you guys enjoyed, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and sorry. This time we are covering a new deck from DZ Set 10 with Veissrugr. So Veissrugr got support in DZ Set 10 with the review of the third Mistress along with another Lunar Right Order card. And honestly, that third Mistress pretty much, in my opinion, fixed every problem Veissrugr had by giving it more soul resources, giving you more Mistress to put into the Order Zone, but also giving the deck more searching as well. So let's get this started, shall we, and see what we have. First today we have our energy generator, so it's our ride deck crest. You may only find ride deck crest in your ride deck. Auto ride deck, when you ride, put this card to your crest zone. If you went second, you can energy charge 3. Continue to spend a 10 energy, I'll be getting right face energy charge 3, and then act once per turn, energy plus 7, draw a card. All around is a very powerful effect because every single turn you're energy charging 3, and this deck does have a lot of energy users. Our main card, the Moongate, of course, obviously takes 3 energy, not to mention the fact that our new Mistress also takes 3 energy, so the fact that we get F3 energy every turn to help mitigate that is good, and you will never be using the energy blast 7 to draw a card because there's a card in here that can use energy of 3 to draw a card, so you're never going to use the energy blast 7, but it's nice to have that if you end up bricking and not seeing any of your Mistress with energy uses. Moving on, we have our starter in Envoy of the Moon Repsol. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 6k base. Auto, when it's rode upon, if you win second, you get to draw a card. Standard starter, not supposed to free draw if you go second. You do have to run Repsol as the starter because the grade 1 of the ride line does require this, so obviously Repsol's our starter, but who wouldn't want to run? It's a cute little rabbit and it involves the theme of the moon, and if you don't love the moon, you're dead to me personally. Moving on, we have our Overtrigger and Star Dragon DD of Infinitude Elder Breath. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Overtrigger, you remember triggering in your deck, reveals add trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one means, give it plus 1 million for the turn, and if you revealed it during your drive check, activate its addition effect, which you get to double the power and critical of all your former units until the end of the turn. Increases double in power and critical when activated. So basically, you pull this on your drive check, your entire front row's power gets doubled, someone's power doubles up into 2 million because you're obviously giving the million before you double the power, and your entire front row basically gets a double crit beat stick. Honestly, Elder Breath is pretty strong. The second you sack it, it pretty much sets you up for full lethal unless your opponent has somewhere between 2 to 3 more PGs in their hand, which already Veissrugr hits for pretty good numbers, so forcing out those PGs is good, and this deck likes to early aggro even on turn 2, so the second you hit turn 2, possibly you already have lethal, obviously one of the Elder Breath are over. Moving on, we have our normal triggers, 3 of Transforming Heavy Machinery, Heavy Constellian, Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. You can make this any front trigger you want. You can do Empyro like I would recommend you do because Empyro has extra shield value. The reason why I don't use Empyro is because I don't like to mix archetypes, so I don't like to run the Cardinal Draco card in a non-cardinal deck, if that makes sense. And the reason why I'm not using the other front trigger that has an ability that can summon itself to soul, which would be really useful for Veissrugr's soul consistency. Veissrugr no longer has a soul problem thanks to the existence of Helgavar, our new Mistress, so I don't really want to risk like having that one front trigger that has a 4k base instead of the 5k base in case that makes a difference in a final turn lethal play. So 3 of Heavy Constellian for front pressure. Again, I would recommend Empower for extra guard power, but you do you with your deck building. Moving on, we have a total of 8 crit, 4 of them being Star Aggression Dragon, Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power, so standard crit, and that's about it. You can make this any crit you want. I chose to make it Star Aggression Dragon because it's my favorite of the vanilla criticals from Brandt. Following that, we have 4 copies of Patrol Rope with Decker Cop, Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 4k power, auto rear guard, about to boost it, shove the soul, choose unit, give it 2k for the turn. It's here on the opposite reason of machinery, so in case the deck does need soul, I'd rather use Decker Cop to fix it because it's at least a unit you want to call it to board compared to the front trigger where you don't want to call it to board, and it gives someone 2k, so it helps quote unquote circumvent its 1k minus difference compared to a normal trigger. But if you want to make this a normal vanilla crit, you 100% can, because again, the deck doesn't typically have its soul problem because Helgavar exists. So 8 crit for pressure, 3 front for additional offense, and then 4 heals, obviously an Alterate Spear Dragon for recovery and, you know, not dying to not having heal triggers when your opponent aggroes you. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power, standard heal, nothing special. You can make this any heal you want. You can use the counter heals, but personally I don't like them too much because they're fluctuating 10 to 25k shield, makes it so that if your opponent hits you in a situation where their abilities aren't going off, you're only going to have a 10k shield, which could ultimately be the difference between you winning and losing. So I choose to run the normal heals, but again, you do you when it comes to your deck. Moving on to our grade 1s, let's talk about our new addition to the Mistress Army, and that would be the third Mistress, Helgavar. This incredibly good grade 1 that shows Bushy sometimes gives decks really good lines of support is a grade 1 with boost, 5k shield, 8k base, and is the equivalent to an archetypal Bulba Mine. So auto placed on rear guard circle other than during the battle phase, choose a Veissrugr grade 3 card from your Riot deck and reveal it. If you either revealed a card or your Vanguard is already a grade 3 or grade 2 Veissrugr in the card, and perform one of the following and shuffle your deck. Either check the top 5 and add up to 1 Veissrugr card or a Lunar Right card from one of them into your hand and reveal it to your opponent. So either add a Persona Ride, God forbid they made a lower grade Veissrugr, but add anything of that kind to your hand, or add one of your many order cards to your hand. Or if you Persona Road this turn, instead of checking the top 5, just Energy Blast 3 to hard grab any Lunarite from your deck to your hand. So, you know, some turns you won't use the Moon Gate because maybe you don't have to since you already have most of your Mishas out of deck and there's no point in searching. So instead you just use that 3 energy that you get every turn from the Energy Generator to search your deck for your really good order A-Lift Gomani and basically aggro your opponent down. Following that, auto rear guard and ability to boost anything. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 grade of Veissrugr, shove to soul countercharge 1. The only thing Bulba Mind has on Helgavar is that you can use Bulba Mind on turn 2. I specified turn 2 and not turn 1 because yes, technically you can use it on turn 1 because you have access to the Moon Gate on turn 1. But the reason why you won't is because turn 1 you never use any CB anyways. Turn 2 your CB would be maybe 1 on Wolf's Den Rotsnir to draw while being boosted by Bulba Mind. So that's the only thing Bulba Mind has on Helgavar. But Helgavar has everything else on Bulba Mind because they do share the same skill, going to soul and countercharging, which is something Veissrugr does need. But the most important part, it is searchable via the entire deck because it is a Mishas. And it can be shuffled back into the deck thanks to Veissrugr's skill because it is a Mishas. And it has an on-play search skill that procs whether it's placed from hand, from deck, from anywhere, as long as it's not during the battle phase specifically. So if you found a way to place it during the end phase, God forbid, it would still proc off. All around Helgavar, amazing grade 1. Searches the deck / top 5 for either an Order or Veissrugr, and it also gets you Soul and CC, and is an amazing support card all around for the deck, so it's a very easy 4 for Veissrugr. Then we have our 4 PGs and Strong Arm Conversion Stroke Arms, because obviously you won't need any main deck grade 1s outside of the PGs when Helgavar exists. Grade 1 boost 0 Soul, 6k base, continuous Sentinel, 4 Sentinels, and deck, and also put on Guard Circle. Choose on mutes, it cannot be hit to the bottom of your hand, stream or cards, and choose a card from hand and discard it. Standard PG, nothing to specify it, because it means if there's only 1 cards in your hand plus on Guard Circle, you don't have to discard. Great, because that means you can be super aggressive in the early game. One more thing I forgot to mention about Helgavar, you can proc off his search skill on turn 1 because all you have to do is reveal the Veissrugr, so you can aggro your opponent now in Mishas consistently without having to risk resources. So Helgavar aggro, Ragnarok aggro, turn 3 aggro with all of them, you know, and when your opponent does eventually counterattack you after you bullied down their hand and by some miracle of God they lived, throw down Stroke of Arms, give them middle finger, good to go. All around, very solid PG to have. You can run any of the PGs from Brandt Gate, such as Violate Dragon or Planet Wall Dragon, because they have the same skill as Stroke Arms, but I choose to make it Stroke Arms because it came out close to the time of Veissrugr's release. Not to mention the fact that Kagetsu is one of the only characters in the DZ anime that actually uses the new DZ PGs. It's only him and Ruka that use the new ones because no one uses the PGs that came out at the very start of DZ. So pretty cool that Kagetsu actually does use Stroke Arms canonically as his PG. And moving on, we have our grade 1 of the Riot deck, which is Follower of the Moon Fresnel. Grade 1 boost 5k shield, AK base, auto in place by writing from Envoy of the Moon Repsol. Reveal a grade 3 card Veissrugr in the card name from your Riot deck, search your deck or hand for up to 1 Moon Gate, put it to your orders on your soak deck, you shuffle it. If you put a card from hand, draw a card. So you can only have 1 copy of the Moon Gate in deck, so if it doesn't end up in hand after mulliganing, well, at least you get a free draw to replace it, and more times than not, you're just going to pull it straight from deck via its skill. Honestly, not a bad grade 1 at all. It sets your deck up importantly with its best cards, so not much more needed out of the one of in the Riot deck and the main deck. I do genuinely feel like this deck was personally tailored for me because for those of you who don't know, I've loved the moon for a long time, and then one of my favorite type of animals is bunnies because they're just so cute, and the entire ride line is like bunnies / rabbit with the mixture of the moon as the importance, with, you know, the moon being the whole thing of the deck. So I feel like this deck was tailored for me. Moving on, we of course have the most important card in the deck, that being our Moon Gate. So grade 1 set order. After set order is played, put it to your order zone. It is not a Lunarite card, so God forbid you did find a way to, you know, pull this off of Helgavar's skill. You wouldn't be able to because again, it's not a Lunarite. So after order zone, Energy Blast 3, rest it. Check the top 7 cards of your deck, choose to 1 unit card that misses in the card name that's graded less than equal to your Vanguard, call to rear guard circle, shuffle the deck. And if you have a grade 3 grade Vanguard Veissrugr in the card name, instead of choosing up to 1 card to call it, you choose up to 3 cards from among them, call up to 1 of them to rear guard from among them, and then put the other ones into the order zone and shuffle your deck. So basically, while you're on grade 1 and grade 2, because thanks to Helgavar, something I forgot to mention earlier, now you can actually use the Moon Gate on turn 1 if you want to aggro your opponent. Should you? No, but you can if you want to now, since Helgavar is a grade 1. But being able to aggro grade 1 and grade 2 turn with the Moon Gate, and then being able to send Ragnarok, Rotsnir, Garzomos, Helgavar itself into the order zone once you get onto Veissrugr makes it a very solid order card to have. Of course, you can only have 1 of it in the deck, but thankfully it's searchable via things like Fresnel. Moving on to our grade 2s, we have 10 copies of our beautiful bird, Crowing Mystic Ragnarok. Grade 2 intercept 5k shield, 10k base, continues to protect. You may have up to 16 Ragnaroks in your deck. Continues rear guard if you have a grade 3 grade Vanguard Veissrugr in the card name, it gets a boost. So it's just a booster, it's just a 10k booster, that's all it is. But on the bright side, you can have multiple copies of it in the deck, meaning it increases the amount of missions that you can have, because otherwise if it's just a normal normal 4 of that you could run. It would be a total of 16 missions, which means there's a good chance you wouldn't be pulling them off the moon gate. But being able to have 10 of them, which ups our missions number from 16 to just a flat 22, is incredible. And then not to mention the fact that again, it's a 10k booster, so you can early aggro with it on grade 2 turn and just have 2 of them in the front row. And then grade 3 turn comes around, they're always in the background, they're always putting constant pressure because they don't have any cost to their skills, so they could slowly build up and kill your opponent. Are a very solid card to have. If you want to take away 1 or 2 copies from some generic tech options, you can, but I prefer having the 10 of just because. Moving on, we have 4 copies of our lovely Fangs of Discipline, the original ancestor in the Wolf of the Heavens, the first Mistress Wolfzan Rotsnir. I was going to do the bit with Helgavar, but I honestly just made that up as I got to Rotsnir. I'm going to try to do it with Garzalmos. So great chance at 5k shield, 10k base. Though to be fair, Rotsnir is my favorite one to repeat because Kagetsu showing it off in the first episode was so fun to me. Anyways, auto placed on rearguard circle. If your Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater, Veissrugr in the card name until end of turn. When this unit would attack into anything, choose one of your opponent's front or rearguard circles, and it battles both your opponent's Vanguard and all the units on that chosen rearguard circle. So pretty solid. They can attack 2 units at once when it swings, and it does that for free just by it being placed while your Vanguard's a Veissrugr. So straight up murders rearguard columns as well, and that's great. And that can proc during both the main phase and the battle phase, and whether it's hard called from hand or superior call via like the Moon Gate or Veissrugr skill. And then auto rearguard when it attacks into anything. If your order zone has a Moon Gate in it, regardless of what grade the opponent's Vanguard's at, give it 5k power to end of turn. Then you can either counter boss 1 or energy boss 3 to draw a card. Arm pretty solid because you need it in 1 CB and then draw a card. Well, again, when it's either attacking a Vanguard or rearguard, regardless of what grade the opponent's at, as long as the Moon gets in the order zone. And if you're at grade 3, well, Helgavar automatically uses itself to soul and replaces the CB that you would spend on the draw, which is a CC instead. And not to mention the fact that if you have extra energy, well, there you go, you can use the extra energy on Rotsnir. Either way, very solid grade 2 to have. You can early game aggro with this to get extra hand cards and pressure out your opponent's grade 2 / even grade 1 Vanguard. Not to mention, once you hit grade 3, you can start murdering rear guards left, right, and center with Rotsnir. All around, very solid grade 2 to have. Gets rid of rear guards, kicks extra resources, and not to mention the fact is a decent beat stick all around consistently throughout the game, so easy 4 of. Then we have the second Mistress, the King of Guidance that shakes the very world itself. The second Mistress, Mid Gazom Gazomos. I don't know if that one was 100% right, but grade 2 at 5k shield, 10k base, auto placed on rearguard circle during battle phase. If you have a grade 3 greater Vanguard Veissrugr in the card name, CB1 till end of your opponent's next turn. This unit cannot be chosen by your opponent's card effects and can attack from the back row. Pretty solid they cannot be chosen by your opponent's card effects, though there are a lot of cards coming out recently that don't really require choosing. But at the same time, it does bypass like 95% of cards all around, so pretty solid on that front. And again, it gives you a back row attacker, and that ability activates regardless of what grade the opponent's Vanguard is at. You yourself just have to be at a grade 3 with Veissrugr in the card name. So if your opponent's at grade 2 and you think you can kill them that turn, even if they're at 2 damage, Veissrugr calls out Garzalmos, and let's just say for the sake of example, Rotsnir from the order zone, you give Garzalmos the ability to back row attack. You have another column of Mistress ready to go, so that means you have a total of 4 attacks on your opponent's grade 2 Vanguard who has 2 damage, and if you've been aggroing the entire game, who knows, if they don't pull damage triggers, maybe they die this turn. Following that, continues rearguard during turn. If your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 Gird, it gets 5,000 power. If you play the normal order this turn, it gets 15,000 instead of 5,000. Just by your opponent simply playing the game and being at grade 3, it's a 15k base. But then if you played an order, which mind you, every order that's in this deck gives this unit at least an extra set of 5k, it's going to be a plus 15k base. Plus, again, whichever order you play is going to give it at least 5k, so plus 20k, meaning it's a 30k in general without the additional of Veissrugr skill, triggers, or the stronger of the 2 orders, because I'm assuming it's the weaker order. So all around, Garzalmos, very solid grade 2. Gets you back row attack for a turn, so turns Veissrugr from a 4 attack deck into a 5 attack deck for a simple cost of CB2, which again is rectified via Helgavar, who is loopable via everything this deck does essentially. And not to mention the fact that it can't be chosen by card effects, so your opponent can't easily board wipe you. And literally it's just a 15k base if your opponent's at grade 3, who turns into a possible 25k base if you played an order / 30k base, because again, you played an order. 4 of Garzalmos, really great grade 2, awesome card. And that takes over to our last grade 2 in the deck, one of in the right deck, none in the main deck, of Vassal of the Moon Ramsodin. Grade 2 instead 5k shield, 10k base, auto in place by riding from Follower of the Moon Fresnel. Check the top 7, choose up to 2 unit cards and missions in their card names from them, reveal them, choose up to 1 of the revealed cards, put it to your hand, and put the other into your order zone and shuffle your deck. So I like how the Rylaine's ability is very active this deck, meaning that all their abilities activate when they're placed. So you know, Fresnel activates when they're placed on top of the grade 0, and then Ramsodin activates when you place on top of Fresnel. What I also like about Ramsodin is that the cards that he shows your opponents, he doesn't force you to call them. He allows you to add them to your hand. So one of them is going to go to order zone. If you do reveal 2, typically you send like a Garzalmos preferably, but if you have a Ragnarok, you send the Ragnarok too. But in the second card, you don't have to put 1 into your hand. You can choose to put both into order zone. So if you see 2 Garzoms, you can just put 2 Garzoms to order zone. That's an option for you. But also it allows you to keep it in your hand if you want to save it for next turn. So say for example, you hit a Garzorms and a Helgavar. You want to save that Helgavar for next turn. Well, you can keep that Helgavar in hand and then just put the Garzoms in order zone, and then you don't have to call it because Ramsodin doesn't superior call. Aron, very solid grade 2 to have. It adds a misses to your hand, adds 1 to 2 misses to your order zone, and all around it's just a very solid free deck then for you while being placed to increase your chance of sacking triggers against your opponent defensively, so one of Ramsden in the ride deck. On to our grade 3s, we have 2 copies of our new Lunarite order, Alfini Savatbaki, grade 3 normal order Lunarite card. This card can be played from the drop zone, and you can only play it once your Vanguards are grade 3 greater Veissrugr in the card name and your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 greater. So close to being so incredibly good. Bind this card from anywhere, whether it's played from drop zone or played from hand, you automatically bind it. Choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets continuous Vanguard. All your rear guards missing the card and get 5,000 power. So it's cheaper A-Lift Gomani. Because A-Lift Gomani costs a CB, this doesn't. You can play this from drop zone, but like I said, whether it's played from drop zone or hand, you got to bind it automatically. Except the difference is A-Lift Gomani does not require the opponent to be at grade 3, which means you can basically kill them on grade 2 turn, and I have seen that happen because of A-Lift Gomani, because of how strong it is. And Alfini Savagati, you unfortunately can't play to opponent gets at grade 3. But I do prefer it over the other Lunarite card we have, which is Omer Verdario, because while Omer Verdario is still really good, it kills a rear guard and then it makes your Mishas lose a CB cost, so Garzoms and Rotsnir work a lot more efficiently with the deck's cost efficiency. I prefer the more beatdown strategy compared to just consistency, and the deck, again, thanks to Helgavar, I don't really run into CB problems too often unless I choose to really get CB heavy, so Alfini is the card I prefer to run just in case I get more numbers, because giving 5k to my entire board instead of just making one card free could ultimately make the difference. So Till Alfini, I mean, is this card fodder? Because again, you can play from drop zone. The only downside being you're only going to be able to play it once your opponent's at grade 3. But that's why for the rest of the game, until that point happens, you play A-Lift Gomani, which we have 2 copies of. So A-Lift Gomani, the grade 3 normal order Lunarite card, play it by counterblasting 1. Choose one of your grade 3 greater Vanguards with Veissrugr in the card name, and it gets contains Vanguard. All your rear guards with mission in the card name get 5,000 power. So the exact same ability as Alfini Savatbagi. However, it also has the additional ability where all of your rear guards with mission in their card names that are replaced by your card ability this turn, whether they're replaced by Veissrugr's ability, the Moongate ability, or literally any other superior call effect, they'll get an additional 5k power till end of turn. So again, you pay CB1 to get the same effect that Salvat normally gives you, so 5k to all of your missions, but anything that's placed by a card ability, so typically you can get about 2 of them every turn that before you get into your battle phase, because one's from Veissrugr set, and then 1 from the Moongate set, meaning 2 of your rear guards, basically your first column. Let's just assume you do what Kagetsu did and do Rotsnir plus Helgavar. That would be a total of plus 20k to that column, swinging to your opponent's Vanguard and a rear guard, which is great. Not to mention the fact that when you then superior call 2 missions off of Veissrugr's skill, they're going to get an additional 10k as well. On A-Lift Gomani, it's a very powerful order, gives your rear guards more numbers by being missions, and gives them even more numbers if they are placed by card abilities, and this ability procs regardless of what grade the opponent's Vanguard's at. So again, if you have something like Garzorms in your hand and you want to take extra damage during your opponent's grade 2 turn to try to kill them on your first grade 3 turn because you see the ability to do it, go for it. Sometimes your opponent doesn't spec the early aggro. Like one time I went to 4 damage on my opponent's first grade 3 turn when I was playing Reza Alvita, so I could Gabwelius and Revistor, and I won because I chose to take extra damage so I could access my skills. So either way, A-Lift Gomani, very solid grade 3 order to have. As for our last card in the deck, we obviously mentioned him so many times today, and we gotta show him off. 3 of them in the main deck, 1 of them in the ride deck, of the Keeper of the Moongate himself, the one who tames the Mishis, Veissrugr. Grade 3 generic persona, 13k base. Active Vanguard once per turn. Soul Blast 2. Choose a Moongate from your order zone and choose one of its original active abilities and activate it without paying the cost. Thankfully, nothing in this deck costs soul outside of Veissrugr, so even though it is a very hefty Soul Blast cost, you have things like Helgavar, which can make that cost a lot more efficient. And basically, if there are turns that come around where you can't use the Moongate because maybe you want to use the energy from it instead on drawing with Rotsnir, or maybe searching the deck for A-Lift Gomani using Helgavar, you can then just use Veissrugr to get the search instead. Second ability, Auto Vanguard when attacks into literally anything, whether it's Vanguard or Rearguard. CB1 to shoot up to 2 unit cards with missions in their card names from your order zone. Call each of them to your Rearguard circle in the same column as each other, and all your front row units get 5,000 power for the turn. So guarantee for 1 CB, even if you call nothing, your front row gets 5k, so he'll be an 18k swinger, probably being boosted by Ragnarok, so 28k swinger, A-Lift Gomani, 33k swinger, Persona Ride, 43k swinger without triggers. You see where I'm going with this. Not to mention the fact that, again, it turns off into a multi-attack deck. This automatically gives you 4 attacks, so even if you don't call Garzorms, or you do, but you don't have the CB to do it, so you do like Garzorms and Ragnarok, or Rotsnir and Ragnarok, you're still getting 4 attacks with really big numbers, or you call Garzorms and Rotsnir, and I mean, yeah, you're losing out on numbers, but instead you're getting extra attacks, and I mean, he gets 5k to the front row anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. And then not to mention the fact that Auto Vanguard, when your unit with Mistress and his card name is put on guard circle, either via intercepting or put on guard circle from hand or put on guard circle from drop zone via a very specific blitz order. Put a card with Mistress and his card name from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck, and it gets 5,000 shield for the battle. It specifies in its card name because assumably in the future they're going to have a card that supports the Mistress that isn't a Mistress by name, but it's a Mistress by text. Because if you haven't been paying attention, Garzorms, Rotsnir, Ragnarok, and Helgavar, they're all Mistress in terms of their typing, like their unit typing that goes at the very bottom of the card, and they all also have Mistress in their card names. But if a card comes along in the future where it doesn't have Mistress in the card name, but it's a Mistress down here, then it wouldn't be applicable for that skill. Either way though, being able to send any Mistress card to your bottom of the deck and add 5,000 shield, basically turning everything in the deck into a 10k shield, which is awesome defensively, because once one of them has been dropped, so you can constantly loop that ability back. Preferably you have two of them in drop zone, so you can always like double up on it. Not to mention the fact that again, it initiates multi-attacking, at least for a 4 attack deck, possibly even 5 attack if you have Garzormos in your order zone. And again, it procs off the Moon Gate for simple Soul Blast 2, which is a resource nothing else in this deck touches, while also having cards that actually up that resource amount. All around, Veissrugr is a very solid grade 3 for consistency, aggro, and just outright defensive power in total. They did a really good job with designing this card, so 3 of in the main deck and 1 in the right deck. And without further ado, this is it for this one. I hope all of you guys enjoyed. Honestly, this deck is very fun to play. Like I said earlier, I feel like this deck was really tailored perfectly for me because it involves the moon and it involves rabbits, but also it's just like very cool, you know, and it's also like fun trying to repeat what Kagetsu said in the anime, like the Fangs of Discipline or the King of Guidance or, you know, the Spear of the Abyss. It's really fun trying to like reenact all the scenes that Kagetsu did, and Lunatic Keeper is one of my favorite themes, and I definitely cannot wait to hear that come out. So if you're interested in playing this deck, I definitely recommend you give it a try, and there's so many different ways to play because again, this deck has so many versatilities with the order and Brandt in general having so many like generically good cards. So without further ado, I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join Twitch, and don't forget to set up your Vanguards.